Listen to your favorite shows live and on demand 24/7. Download the 77 WABC mobile app now. This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. Noam laden in for a vacationing Frank Morano. I'm reading about this guilt-free chocolate bar. Really interesting what scientists are doing. We're living in an interesting time where now you have these fake meat products for people who don't want to eat meat, don't want the cholesterol, or they're vegans, and some of that stuff I find tastes pretty good. The fake burgers, you put them on the grill. If you grill them right, they're all right. Now there's this guilt-free chocolate bar that they're working on. It'll be full of the sugar that you get in a chocolate bar. The thought is it's going to land in a supermarket near you relatively soon. The chocolate would look and taste normal, contain the same amount of sugar that a normal chocolate bar does. But what scientists have done is they've looked at the enzyme encased in edible substance, and they've added this to the bar. So what it would do, it would reduce how much sugar is actually absorbed into your bloodstream and even turn it into a fiber that would be good for your gut. Now, I would think this would have even bigger things it could be used for, people who are diabetic maybe. The product, the brainchild of these scientists at Harvard University's Weiss Institute for Biological Inspired Engineering, they tapped these scientists, a couple of the chocolate companies, to help develop a sugar substitute that would enable these food giants like Kraft Heinz and Hershey's to cut the sweetener from its food without losing its effect. But the scientists actually had this different idea. They said, let's save the sugar, but devise a way to make it healthier. Of course, the problem is not the sugar itself. The problem is that we eat too much sugar. And so this sugar to fiber enzyme is among this latest technologies dreamed up to deal with our addiction to sugar without ditching sugar itself. Another fix involves a drink mix containing microscopic sponges that soak up sugar in the stomach at mealtime. Even researchers still working to reduce sugar are peddling some of these new technologies, and you can imagine there's a lot of investment going on, but we could someday soon, very soon apparently, according to these scientists at Harvard, have what would essentially be really a guilt-free chocolate bar. No doubt you've tried some of the stuff that's like low sugar, no sugar. It doesn't taste like the original. Now they're saying maybe in the very near future, if these scientists are able to work this out, you'd be having this Hershey bar that would taste 100% like the Hershey bar you're eating now, but the sugar would not affect you in the way that sugars do now. That would be amazing. And then there's this study that I also found interesting. People who regularly eat processed red meat like hot dogs, bacon, sausage, salami, bologna, have a greater risk now of developing dementia later in life. This is the conclusion of what's preliminary research presented this week at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. So the study tracked about 130,000 adults across the U.S. for about 43 years. This is no simple study. And during that period, about 11,000 of those people developed some sort of dementia. Those who consumed about 2 servings of processed red meat per week had a 15% greater risk of developing dementia compared to those who ate fewer than 3 servings a month. So eating unprocessed red meat like steak, pork chops did not significantly increase the risk of dementia. So it was all these over-processed red meats that do. So interesting, because if you are like me, you have people in your life now who are suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, and they haven't figured out how to get rid of this or how to stop it. And it seems like now you have these memory care centers that are being built everywhere because that population of people with dementia and Alzheimer's is growing. And so, okay, one interesting study not the end all, is saying that, hey, if you hold off on those processed meats, that might potentially make a difference. I thought this was funny. A UK comedian did not realize how bad his dental problems were until he actually started getting messages from people during his stand-up. So he's a Manchester native, Manchester, England. His name is Jamie Hutchinson, and he's a well-known comic in the UK. And he said over the last couple months, he started getting DMs, direct messages, into his Instagram from people who had seen him and said, and they weren't trying to be mean, they said, I had a front row seat to watch your comedy, and I was really enjoying it, but I couldn't enjoy it that much because your breath was so incredibly bad. Now, this is a guy who's on stage. I mean, if you've been to a stand-up comedy club, usually it's some form of an elevated stage, and then there's an audience that's sitting at a table having drinks. And you would think that might overwhelm the scent, the food or the drinks that they're having. But apparently his breath so bad that initially he said, okay, it's just some jerk who doesn't like what I'm doing. And he dismissed the DM. But he said he got a number of DMs from other people who said, also, by the way, I'm not trying to be mean, but your breath is incredibly bad.
How do you not know this?
Well, I don't know about you, but you've had people in your life who have horrendous breath and you don't tell them.
No, it happens here and there. But somebody who has chronic halitosis, you have to know. I mean, isn't it in the English are known for having bad teeth? That was
I think that was in the yesteryear, not so much anymore.
Yeah, that was this stereotype, I guess, of bad teeth, that they would then have bad breath. But what is this guy eating, or what is he brushing his teeth every day?
Well, he was.
What's he doing?
He ended up having some sort of serious dental health issue, and he said he would not have gone in to have it checked out in any serious way if he hadn't received enough DMs. He got like 7 messages from complete strangers. And again, I can understand the first couple he just totally dismissed as people who did not like maybe a stand-up or just tried to razz him or trolls online. But then he said, wait a minute. And he did ask a couple people around him. He said, hey, I'm getting these messages that I have bad breath. Do you think I have bad breath? And a couple people said, yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd be annoyed with all the people that never told me that I had this rancid breath.
Yeah, how do you tell people? Come on.
And then when 7 strangers out of nowhere DM you, you got to take that seriously.
Yeah.
Obviously, your breath is really bad for somebody to take the time
to find you on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
And then write a message and go, yeah, I think you're really funny, but your breath is horrendous.
And then to couch it in like, hey, by the way, I'm a fan.
Right. Yeah.
But I just want you to go do something. So anyway, by the way.
But don't you know when you have bad breath? I mean, can't you taste it in your own mouth?
I can, but I've worked with people, I've known people over my lifetime where it's like, whoa, but I would never in a million years tell them.
That's true.
I mean, if it was a loved one, that's something different.
Right.
But you're not going to tell somebody.
Yeah. No, it happens, but I think now that less people are smoking than before, that was always a thing of smoker breath. I mean, I smoked for a long time, and I had smoker breath, but I always chewed gum too to try to get rid of it to some degrry.
Right.
But you gotta.
But you always reek of it anyway.
Your clothes reek of it. Everything reeks of smoke. That's the one thing that I gotta say, that I was not against the smoking ban in restaurants. I didn't like it at all. In bars, I mean, restaurants not as much, but bars. In the beginning, I thought it was horrible. But then when you're in a bar and you go, this isn't so bad.
Oh, it's great. Thank God for, this was in New York City. Mayor Bloomberg was instituted the no smoking ban here. Well, it's a long time ago already. And it was really controversial when he first did it. But boy, he was brilliant. He knew exactly what he was doing. And now it's just like you go to a concert, you come home, your pillow doesn't stink of smoke the next day. And the people who smoke, they smoke outside before they come in. No big deal. Bar, restaurant, whatever it was. And all those people, workers who were inhaling that secondhand smoke for so many years, now, they've been saved. The last outpost, of course, casinos, right? Casinos you can still smoke in.
Yeah, casinos you could still smoke in, but we'll see how much longer that even lasts.
All right, so I have to be honest with you, Matt. I was on either Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember which one. And you had a picture of your swimming pool.
Yeah.
That you had posted.
Yes.
And I said, oh, that looks very inviting, very nice.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I've never really looked at Matt Blaze's Instagram, Facebook. I don't remember which one it was. Facebook. Okay. Yeah. Facebook. Let me see.
All right.
So I started looking at a couple pictures. What people do, you kind of snoop around, see what's on there.
Sure.
And one of the first pictures I come to is of you with your arm around this beautiful woman who's clearly your wife, right?
Yeah. You could call her wifey.
Oh, she's not your wife?
Well, not technically, but yes.
Oh, was she girlfriend?
More than that.
Oh.
We're just not legally married, but
well, that's
you could say wife. I mean, I do for the most part.
Oh, so you're part of this stat.
I'm one of those people, yeah.
Yeah, you're part of this stat of this new crew of a growing part of America of people who are living together who are not married, cohabitating. And the new census numbers have come out. They've really started to study this. And it is amazing the spike in couples that have decided to live together but not get married. The census data shows the spike in cohabitating couples in recent years, and their number is increasing much faster than that of married couples. This has never happened in the history of our country. And when they've studied these numbers over the decades, whether it be Pew or Census or anybody who follows this, they say this is an astounding number of couples who've now decided not to get married. And of course, there's so many benefits that go along financially and that kind of thing with getting married, but that doesn't seem to be matter to couples. In your case, how long you've been together with your girlfriend?
We've been 19 years. Yeah, 19 years.
And why have
living together for 18 of those years, I think. Yeah. Yeah, we've been living together since 2006, so it's 18 years.
And why haven't you decided to get married?
Well, there was the plan. That was a plan. It wasn't like we said, okay, we're just going to live together and that's that. That was a plan. And then when we decided to buy a house, that came first. And then the wedding was like, well, we'll see. And then, the next year, and then the next year.
So you own a house together.
Next year, yeah. And then the next year. And the next thing you know, we're all these years later. It's like, why even bother?
Right. Well,
we're fine.
Then it becomes, of course, incredibly complicated if something, God forbid, were to happen. You decided not to be together anymore. Then you have to figure that out. And there's all these financial benefits with being married. The number of married coupled households lagging behind. So there's this rise in cohabitation. It's a national trend. Back in 2010, there were 6.8 million unmarried couples living together in the U.S. That number has risen to 9.5 million, according to the latest census. So you're part of, Matt, what is a growing crew of people. The Census Bureau does not attempt to count less conventional domestic partner arrangements, but they do count ones like yours, right? So there's, kind of strange ones that they just don't bother with. So it's either, married couples, whether they be gay or straight, and then couples, whether they be gay or straight, who are cohabitating. So the rise they're seeing in the people who are cohabitating and not getting married are all in the big cities around the country. So of Seattle's nearly 42,000 cohabitating couples, only about 2,400 or less than 6% had children in the household. So that's the other issue, is not only are these couples not getting married, but they're also not having kids. And the numbers keep rising. And they think that there's all to suggest that when they do the next census, this number will be a whole lot higher.
Well, think about what's the divorce rate?
It's not as high as it once was, but It is pretty high.
Exactly. So, and how many times have you heard a story of people that lived together for 10, 12, 15 years, never got married, they decide to get married, and they're divorced and separated within a year?
True. It's absolutely true. Maybe you're in one of these cohabiting relationships, and you can explain to me why, like Matt, you have decided not to get married and enjoy the benefits financially of being married. There's all kinds of studies here, and I'm going to get through them, that suggest that if you are married, you live longer, you have more money in the bank at the end of the day, and overall, you end up being happier. And that the people who are cohabitors are not as happy as in the end as married couples. So even though those numbers are rising of people who are living together and are not married, ultimately married couples, according to studies across the board, are happier. So why are you staying in a relationship where you're not married, where you don't all enjoy all those benefits? We're going to give you a chance to weigh in on this. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Curious to hear. You can be in a married relationship as well. Talk about what it means, why people are deciding not to get married more and more in what seems to be numbers that go up every time there's a new census, but the spike incredible in the last census from the one before that. We'll get that, your calls, and more stories. Noam Layden filling in for Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This summer, during the biggest sporting event of the year, Peacock turns to two broadcasting legends for the Olympics coverage you can't find anywhere else.
I think they mean us.
With an incredible duo sure to take home the comedy gold. Olympic Highlights with Kevin Hart and Kenan Thompson. New episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Only on Peacock.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Love and marriage, they go together like a horse and carriage. This I'll tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other.
Oh, yeah. Noam Layden, this is The Other Side of Midnight, in for Frank Morano, who's got the week off, vacationing down the Jersey Shore, talking about this rise in couples who stay together for years but never get married. Census numbers show those numbers have spiked big time. In fact, the number of couples living together and not getting married is growing faster than married couple. This according to the latest census. We're trying to figure out what is behind this. And maybe you're one of those couples who's decided not to get married, or maybe you decided to get married. And if you want to weigh in, of course you can. I'll give you the phone number, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. There is all kinds of research that will tell you that the married couples ultimately are happier at the end of the day. Listen closely, Matt, as somebody who's been involved in the relationship of 19 years. Is that what you said? 19 years, 18 years, 19 years with what looks to be a lovely woman who, does she bother you about getting married, by the way? No. Oh, so she's not interested in it either.
No.
There's this Gallup well-being data. It's a poll from Gallup. They talked to people from 2009 to 2023 to find that in the end, that married people are more likely to be thriving in their well-being than adults who are living with a couple that they have not gotten married to. So Gallup does this thing where they classify Americans in 3 different ways, and then they calculate the ultimate number. Either you're thriving, struggling, or suffering. That's according to how they rate their current and future lives. So when they did this survey over this really long period of time, married adults aged 25 to 50 were more likely to be thriving, the highest possible level for according to the survey. Thriving, suggesting that they're doing well or incredibly well. By double-digit margins, by the way, over the couples who were in relationships where they had decided not to get married.
That is so bogus, Noam. That is such a lie. First of all, what guy, what man is going to admit in front of his wife that he is not happy? That's not going to happen. No one's going to be, yeah, I hate her. She's sitting right next to you in this survey. I don't like my wife.
Well,
who's going to say that?
Let me take this one step further. One indication of why married people express higher subjective well-being is that the quality, they say, of their romantic relationships tends to be a whole lot higher than those who have decided and opted not to get married.
Yeah, with who?
What do you mean?
It just says that their romantic relationship with who? Their wife or their mistress? Just because it says their romantic involvement doesn't have to be with their spouse.
Right.
Could be somebody else, which keeps them happy with their marriage.
Well, you make a good point there. 646-720-0635. Let's see. Jesse is in Minnesota. And now, Jesse, you are on the other side of midnight. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I'm calling from Minnesota, and I should start by saying that I personally have never been married, but I'm in my mid-40s, and I've watched many male friends and male coworkers go through divorce. And I can only speak for Minnesota. I cannot speak for any other states. But in Minnesota, divorce is very, very, very hard on the male, especially if the male has children with his wife. And so I always knew that I wanted to retire semi-early. I hope to be finished at 59 and a half. And divorce just decimates those chances, because of the financial commitments that the male must attend to. Now, if you have children, of course you should provide. But in Minnesota, typically the wife gets the house and the husband gets to continue paying for it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we have a saying in Minnesota: "Love is grand, divorce is $100,000."
Right, that's great.
And that's just the cost of getting divorced. That's just the lawyer fees and the court fees. And what was that Jerry Reed song where he said they split it down the half, and they split it down, and they gave her the better half. I think it was called.
Right. That's absolutely right. So let me ask you this, if you don't mind me asking. And I think you make a great point. My friends, by the way, you were 100% right. The ones that have gotten divorced, almost all of them have essentially been decimated, and not. I will say both sides. The husband and the wife are now not living as well as they were living before. No two ways about it. How come you never decided to get married? Just didn't find the right person?
No, in fact, kind of a side, when internet dating was kind of a new thing, I gave it a try for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. I enjoy dating, but I put on my profile on these internet sites. Now, these were, not hookup sites. These were just actual, let's go on a date sites. And I was 100% honest. This is what I'm offering. This is what I'm not offering. These are my deal breakers. And I got so many messages. And the headline of my dating profile was, "The greatest guy you'll never marry." And from the start, I made it very clear. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't steal, but I will never marry you. And I got so many women that messaged me and just said, "Thank you for being so straightforward and honest."
I love that. Hold your thought 1 second for Jesse. Jesse, it's 30 minutes after the hour. This is the other side of midnight. Talking with Jesse, who's listening to us on WCCO in Minnesota. That's a great headline, but of course doesn't help you if you do decide you want to get married, writing something like that, being so honest.
No, and I would recommend, if there's any, life is better. If you are a heterosexual male, life is better with a female in your life. And running around, let's leave that for the younger guys. But when you're established and you're, this whole running around idea, that let the guys in their 20s do that. But when you're in your 30s and 40s, your life is better if you share it with a female.
Oh,
However,
so you feel like you would like to get married at some point?
No, not married. I said,
oh, just together with somebody.
No, just somebody to
hang out with.
Hang out with, enjoy different. Explore their interests. They explore yours. You go out and have a good time. I'm one that actually goes outside. Actually take a woman on a date, an actual, real, let's shut our cell phones off date. I mean, that's kind of old fashioned, but
I think that's great.
At the end of the day, I would like my 401k to remain a 401k. I don't want it to turn into a 201k.
Right.
You know?
I hear you.
And on the other side of the coin, the Johnny Taylor song, "It's Cheaper to Keep Her." I know a lot of guys that are miserable, and they're good human beings, so they're sticking it out for the best. It's better for the kids if the household stays intact. So they're doing that, but they are walking shells. They're miserable, and I just don't think that that was ever going to be the road for me. That's just me personally. So if the point I'm trying to make is, I do think that your life is better if you share it with someone, but that doesn't mean you have to retire at age 85 only because your body can no longer work. I want to retire with dignity, and I'd like to keep my home. I'd like to keep my pension.
You sound like a guy that women would love. Are you with somebody right now?
Right now, yes and no. Yes, but she does not like the fact that I'm a workaholic. I do like to work. I was born to work. I like to work. When I have time off, it's hers. But I don't have as much time off as she would like.
All right. Well,
I know there's probably others in that boat as well.
Yeah. All right, Jesse.
It's a balance game.
It is. And you made a lot of great points, and you should definitely call in more often. And thanks for listening to The Other Side of Midnight.
Guys, have a good night. And if there's anybody out there that is married, remember, it's cheaper to keep it.
Yeah. It's so funny you should say that. So I see the board is all lit up with people who want to weigh in, and I imagine a fair amount of people are going to agree with Jesse on that one. Let's go to Ralph, who is here in Manhattan. And Ralph, you are now on The Other Side of Midnight.
Jesse should be a talk show host.
Yeah.
I mean, he just... you had a good 10 minutes with that cat, but that was excellent. Just to go back for a moment, Noam, if I may, about the alternative to meat, so on and so forth. It's if you have the source of the meat is what counts. If you have grass-fed beef once in a while, you have that kind of good organic chicken. You're gonna find that this is what your body is made to eat. It's the source, is what that animal eats, not so much, and the processed stuff is actually a big no-no.
Right.
I mean, if you could stay completely away from that processed stuff, you'd be doing yourself a great service, because it's just terrible. I got married at 61.
Wow.
And
first time? First time marriage?
My first time. I was running when I was listening to your show, so I'm out of breath. I got married for the first time 61, and it's been just a wonderful thing for me. Changed my life completely. I don't know if there's one woman for everybody, but as soon as I met my wife, I felt that this was right for the first time. And I was confirmed. No, I said to myself, I'm never going to get married. But she ultimately changed my mind. And it's been a great thing.
Wow. Well, that's great to hear. What are you doing running out in the middle of the night?
Well, if I get it done now, Noam, right. I can't talk myself out of it later on.
Oh, that's
because
you make a good point.
And on that empty stomach in the morning, if you're fasting till about 1 PM, which I do on a regular basis, it is the absolute best. If you get out there, start your day so beautifully, you just get out there and go. You splash some water on your face and you just take off, and that's exactly what I do.
All right. Ralph, great story. Thank you for joining us on The Other Side of Midnight. Let's see, who else we got? Mark is in Illinois, and now, Mark, you're on The Other Side of Midnight. It's interesting. It's all men calling in. Hey, Mark.
Well, yeah, I am totally blind, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to ask of my prospective or actual girlfriend, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to ask her if she would be willing to be religiously married, but not legally married. And the reason I'm going to ask her that is that I don't want to sponge off of her income. I get a disability check, but my best legal understanding is that if we got legally married, I would lose that check because I would legally be considered her dependent. And therefore, they would totally cut off my check. So I would want to keep the check coming in. And the only way I know of to do that is to be religiously married, but not legally married. Being religiously married means that you have said vows and you have had sex, but you have not done it with state-approved authority. And I don't see anything wrong with that. If you have made a commitment to each other and you have said vows and you really mean them, I don't see that you need the piece of paper. And I know a lot of Christians would disagree with me that. I am a Christian and I believe in abiding by the covenant of marriage, but I don't think you need the legal piece of paper to do it.
And so you would say essentially it's under God you're married, which seems like that's
exactly.
very reasonable. That commitment would be just as strong.
And I would not have sex with any other woman, period.
Are you with somebody now, or this is what you're suggesting that you'd want to happen?
I have met a woman lately that I'm kind of thinking about whether she should be my girlfriend, and this is one of the questions I'm going to put to her. Would you be willing to be married religiously, but not legally?
When you've dated over the years, have the people that you dated, they're people who can see, or are they people that are as blind as well?
No, for the most part, I've dated people who have sight, and I used to be partially sighted. I've only lost my total eyesight in the last 4 years. And
so, so it's all been, and even now, and when you say you've lost your sight, is what happened that you lost your sight?
In brief, I had scar tissue on the front of my eye. Because of COVID, my surgery was delayed.
Oh, geez.
The delay in my surgery gave the scar tissue time to migrate to the rear of my eye and detach my retina. The ophthalmologist tried everything to reattach my retina, and it didn't work.
That's a horrendous story. I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. Jeez.
Well, I'll tell you, I always loved the fireworks. I always loved the changing of the seasons in spring and in autumn, and I always loved the Christmas lights. The only compensation I have is that I've always seen colors with music. Unfortunately, I still do.
And so you can't see anything now?
No, I occasionally get what I'm getting now. I've got a lighted visual field, but the light is coming from my brain. It's not coming from anything in the external world.
I always, what is it like to go from being somebody who could see and sort of, I imagine you didn't have to rely on other people, then in later life now to have to really rely on other people. That must be incredibly hard.
To some extent, I had to rely on other people because my vision was still considered to be 10% or less. But yeah, there have been changes. For instance, I have learned to use a cane, and then only within my apartment building. I still need more training in order to use it outside the building. But yeah, there have definitely been adjustments.
Well, Mark, best of luck to you. Thanks for calling in to the other side of midnight. Chris is on Long Island, and now, Chris, you are on the other side of midnight.
Hi, Noam. How are you? Big fan.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm 58. My girlfriend's 56, and we are talking about moving in together without getting married. She's retired. She retired at 53, and that would enable me to retire at a younger age on Long Island.
Right, and so that's why you're making the decision. It's really a financial decision in the end.
Yeah, it's more than that. I mean, we love each other. She's got 4 children, though, also. So we're waiting to get the last one off to college. Once we do, then financially it makes sense for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. I mean, it sounds like for most people, and thanks so much, Joe, for giving us the holler on the other side of midnight. 646-720-0635, looking at these studies that talk about the married couples, unmarried couples, and their level of happiness. There's all this information, too, about whether you should live together before tying the knot, and much to what Matt said, there are all kinds of studies that suggest that couples who actually did live together after a long period of time and then decided to get married, that they were more often likely to then get divorced, which is fascinating to me, that you would spend, in Matt's case, 18, 19 years together. Let's say he decides to get married. The chances then go up incredibly that he will then get divorced. And that's just after having a piece of paper that you signed and maybe going before God in church or synagogue, whatever, mosque, and getting married to somebody. I think that's really interesting. I wonder why that is.
I think it's because they felt like free, even though they were together on their own accord. But now that they're married, they feel totally attached, and then they don't like it. I think they feel boxed in, even though it's the exact same thing. You're already with the person for all these years, just because now that you have a ring on your finger, and now I guess maybe there's like always in the back of their heads people think like, oh, I could always leave because I'm not actually married to the person. But then once you get married, now you're attached. Now in their heads, they think they can't leave because they're married, and then they become unhappy. And that's what I think happens. And I don't feel like that in my case, by the way, but that I think if I got married, that would happen. But for me, we just got to a point where we're like, why even bother?
Well, if you were to leave at this point, after so many years, it would be the same thing as getting divorced.
I guess that's true.
You would have to go through if you bought the house together, right? And all that other stuff. You go the same thing a married couple would go through.
There's all stuff like that that's tied together, but I'm not a person that I wouldn't be like a messy. It would just be like, you could have whatever. I really don't care.
Yeah, well,
that's just the way I am.
No, I don't wish that on you because it's an awful thing to happen.
No, of course not. Yeah. I'm just saying.
Right. It is interesting, too, that we're watching as people do decide to get married. There's this other trend now towards trying to figure out a way to save cash on all these weddings because they become so expensive. The average wedding across the country now is around $30,000, which is an enormous sum of money. And it's interesting to see what some of these young couples are doing. A number of couples now are going for a brunch wedding, which I think is kind of an interesting idea. Spending a lot less money to bring everybody in to do the same thing that they would do at nighttime. The DJ, the caterer, the flowers, the person who officiates the wedding. And we're seeing this a lot in New York. In fact, this one couple saying that the nighttime wedding, if they had done the same wedding that they did for brunch, the nighttime version of it would have cost them $80,000. This is here in Midtown Manhattan. This is, the photographer, the caterer, the DJ. They did a 10 a.m. service, and then they brought people over to have chicken, waffle, shrimp, and grits as the breakfast meal. And it cost them a third of what they were being told a nighttime wedding would cost them, which I think is really interesting. The other new trend in weddings as well is slapping a price tag on tickets. Now, this one, I don't know how I'd respond to it, but it is a growing trend in the wedding industry, is couples will send you a ticket to buy to come to their wedding. So $333 for this one couple here in the city, Nova and Rima Stiles. They said, okay, we figured out how much our wedding would cost. They had this dream wedding. They wanted to invite a certain amount of invitees. They figured out how much the caterer would cost. They had a live band. And then they sent out tickets to all the people that they wanted to invite to their wedding. Now, the ticket was $333. $333. And then that got you and I guess your guest, a spouse, whatever, a couple into the wedding. And then they said no gifts or anything like that. So $333, you pay for the wedding. I'm guessing they must have put in a little finances for them to have some money left over as well. And they're one of a number of couples now started to do this. And maybe this will become the norm because there's always that issue of like, what do I buy the couple afterwards? How you try to figure out the cost of the plate, whatever it is, whatever your calculation is on getting a couple a wedding gift. This trend of $333. So 150 people, 350 people, $333. I don't know how much that works out to, but it's a lot of money.
I guess they look at it as a trade-off that you don't have to buy a gift, but you're spending $330 to attend their wedding.
Right.
But to me, that just comes off as totally obnoxious. That, oh, we're gonna send you a ticket to our wedding and you have to pay if you want to come to our wedding.
Yeah.
Like we're putting on a performance, like it's a concert, like it's a show. To be at our wedding, you have to pay to be there. You invite people to a wedding because they're your family, they're your friends. You want to celebrate with them in the joy of the union of two people, not for any other reason. I mean, that's the whole purpose of having a wedding party. Now, you tell these people, oh, by the way, don't give us any gifts, but you got to spend $330.
Right.
The same as people who have destination weddings.
Yeah, well,
it's obnoxious. It's just obnoxious. You're making all of the, unless you're going to fly them, unless you're going to pay for the wedding. Like that couple did.
Yeah.
That story that we did a few weeks ago about this couple that had this wedding and it was on a cruise and they paid for all that.
Right.
It was like, what was it, $1 billion or whatever it was?
Yeah, it's the most expensive wedding maybe in history.
Yeah, something crazy, but they paid for it. If you're going to pay for that, a destination wedding, by all means, invite everybody you want. It's just that people have to have the time to go where they're going. And the same thing with this. I think if you're going to have a wedding, you pay for it. Let people, and if you have a wedding, if you bring a gift, you don't give a gift, who cares? That's not the purpose of the wedding. You're not going to the wedding because you want gifts, or you have a wedding because you want gifts. At least that's not my thinking.
Yeah, they're celebrating your love in front of other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if somebody brings a gift, great. If they don't, great. Just I want you to come because I want you to celebrate with me.
Yeah, you know how it is though. It's the shock of that $333 ticket now, and then it'll become the norm. It'll be like, okay, you're just paying for one price. You know what the price is, in and out, no present. Give them the money, boom, on the way. Because ultimately, new couples, that's all they want is cash. They're not interested in getting a food processor or mixer like in the old days. So.
But $330 per person?
I think it's a couple. $333
okay, I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what, $160 some odd dollars, $165 each, which is probably what a plate costs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is, but it just still comes off as obnoxious to me.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It could become the new trend. A fair amount of couples are trying it successfully, by the way, have pulled it off. All right, we got more to get to. It is Noam Laden in for Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. Noam Laden in for Frank Morano. There definitely is a place in hell for people who fake disabilities to get things for themselves. I mean, this is just horrendous. No doubt you've probably heard about this one scam that takes place at Disneyland and Disney World, where couples in the past, or families, really more likely families, sometimes have essentially rented somebody who is disabled to push around in a chair. You haven't heard about this? This is an ongoing. Oh, this has been going on for years.
That you hire somebody?
Yeah, you hire
to play disabled, or are they actually disabled?
No, they're actually disabled. And so what Disney does a lot of times is, if depending, I guess, on your disability, they move you to the front of the line at rides. And as you've ever been to Disneyland or Disney World, no doubt those lines can be incredibly long, and the kids get, they just can't handle it.
Wait, how much does it cost to rent one of these?
It's a fair amount of money. There was a couple New York families over the last couple of years that sort of essentially got busted doing it. I mean,
but how do you get busted?
Well, I think they just figured out the scam. Either they told other people about it, and then they went to the press and said, "This is awful. How could you do this?" But they did.
I thought it was somebody pretending to be disabled,
and then they've had
riding a ride in that golf cart that they do.
Yeah,
and I got to be honest, I haven't been to Disney. It's been a while since I've been there. But the last time I was there, all I can remember going to like the Magic Kingdom was a bunch of fat people riding around in these golf carts.
Right. They don't get they don't get frontline access. It's people who truly have some form of disability, and you have to do some sort of registration sometimes depending on where you are and what it is, in Disneyland, Disney World, other theme parks. So Disney World's getting tired of this because so many people are trying to pull this scam where they sit in a wheelchair and try to get to the front of the line. So now, if they have a new policy, if you've ever faked a disability to skip lines at Walt Disney World, you could receive a lifetime ban from the happiest place on earth. They are now updating their policies, and any guest that's caught lying about having a disability to abuse what they call the Disability Access Service in order to skip lines will be banned. And I was looking at the website. They'll determine, they're going to ask you all kinds of questions. So this policy went into effect just a few weeks ago. And when you register, they're going to try to just access or figure out right away what your disability is. And they think, just in a matter of questions, they'll be able to figure out whether it's legit or real or not.
It's be like Dragnet under some lamp, and they're going to ask them questions. When did you get this disability? How did you get this disability?
Yeah.
What's the name of your doctor? We're going to check out. We're going to make sure. What's the name of your doctor's office? When was your last appointment?
Yeah, well, now...
How far along are you in this disability?
Right.
Answer me.
Well, who knows? It may be something like that. But good for Disney World, because the fact is that there's a fair amount of people that have done this over the years and continue to do so, faking this disabilities to get to this front spot in line. They said they're going to eye them, watch them, either coming in, out of the park, ask them a few questions along the way. And if they're able to determine that you faked this, and I imagine it's not hard to do, figure out who's legit and who's not, you'll get a lifetime ban from Disneyland or Disney World. So good for them for coming up with that. I think that's a smart move on their part.
Well, I wonder if they'll put somebody that works at Disney and they go, listen, this guy over here says he's disabled. Tail him. And they give you you have to tell the family
I don't think it's
around
that
the
bad.
park and just watch them. Make sure that guy doesn't get up out of that wheelchair.
It seems like there are so many scams, and I read about these scams, and I'm always amazed that people take it to the next level. And this poor woman at a Mayfield Heights, Ohio. So she fell for this scam where she handed over money to people who were pretending to be from her bank. These criminals said that they were from Huntington Bank in Mayfield Heights, Ohio. They called her on what looked like a customer service number line. You may have gotten these calls too, where looks like somebody's calling you from Wells Fargo or some other bank, and maybe you pick up the phone and right away you figure out it's not real. Unfortunately for this woman in this case, she did not. So they told her that there was some sort of problem with her bank account and that the law enforcement was going to come after her if she did not move $6,000 from her bank account at Huntington Bank to a Chase Bank debit card. And then add it to her Apple Wallet, and I guess that's where they were able to steal it without anybody figuring it out. But if that's not enough, these horrendous, awful people who took the $6,000 in cash from her that she'll never see again, they then called her on FaceTime, and they told her that not only did they need the money from her account, which she had already apparently had given to them, but they needed to do a full body scan to verify her identity, due to the fact that they said there was some sort of failed transaction. Now, at this point, they already had the money in their hands. And they said to do this full body scan, she would have to take off all of her clothes. So the same poor woman who now's given the scammer $6,000, they call her on FaceTime. She then takes the phone and she drops all of her clothes. And in that moment, these awful human beings who we need to find and just beat the living daylights out of, they start laughing. And in that moment, she realizes that's when she's been scammed out of all that money. And that she, just people out there, they don't know. You by yourself, sometimes you don't have anybody to ask a question to know that this is fraud or if this is real. But
taking off your clothes?
Yeah, to do a full body scan. So then now Huntington Bank has come out and they said, by the way, we'll never call you on FaceTime. That's not going to happen. And, for sure, you need to watch out when a number looks like it's coming from us and they're asking for some sort of information where you need to transfer funds. The best thing to do is hang up the phone, walk into the bank, and see if that whole thing is legit or not. Chances are it's not legit.
Well, these are the scams that have been going on now for a long time, especially with emails and text now, that it looks like an email from your company.
And it's not.
And it's not. And I got one of those emails today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From what seemed to be my cable company.
Right.
Saying that a payment has been declined. Now, meanwhile, the payment went through a week ago.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and people get tons of emails like this all the time. And it's always good. Just ask somebody around you. Sometimes you walk it through it with them to make sure it's legit. It's easy to fall for. I know people have fallen for this. The tax one. In this case, this woman with her bank. How awful. FaceTime. Oh, my God. If I could find these people, I'd take them out back. All right. It's been fun filling in for my buddy Frank Morano on the other side of midnight. Maybe we'll do it one more night tomorrow. Have a fantastic morning. This is The Other Side of Midnight.